Hey everybody, Mo here, and in this video, I'm bringing you guys some gameplay on Ahri Akshan Infinite Combo. So for those of you that don't know, this deck is an infinite combo deck where you can go off most of the time on turn 6 and turn 7, and I included this as a deck to play, or a new deck to play, on my 5 new decks to play video that I put out when the season first started. And today, I'm going to be going over exactly how the combo works. And I'm going to include a game of the combo going off. And then I'll put a link in the description to a VOD where I played this deck for multiple hours. So you can get as many games. If you want to watch how I play it through a bunch of games, you can go watch there. I'm only going to include one game in this video because, one, I'm going to go over the in-depth how the combo works and how to play the deck. And then, two, all of the games usually take a very long time. And because of that, I don't really want to put more than one game in the video, or the video would be like an hour long just off of a couple games. So if you're into degenerate infinite combo decks and winning in one turn, and if you like playing solitaire, then this is basically the deck for you. So before we get into the deck guide, I wanted to remind you guys that only 60% of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed to me. So if you guys could do me a huge favor and click that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to hit 5,000 subs before the end of the year, so we can start 2022 off extremely strong. So if you guys just want to hit the sub button, leave a comment down below letting me know what type of deck you want to see next on the Deck Guide for Dummies series. I'd really appreciate it. So that's it for the intro. Let's get into the deck guide. Alright, so we're going to start this video off with how exactly does this deck work, what is the deck's purpose, how do you win games, stuff like that. And then we'll go over how each card, or the reason behind each card in the deck, and then I'll go ahead and show you guys a game with it. So we'll go over with how does this deck actually win, what is the purpose of this deck? Well, the purpose of this deck is to win. You'll essentially be winning the game with one Ahri, and then you will give your Ahri +2/+2 in Spell Shield. And you will Absolver your Ahri, and then Absolver Ahri will give it Overwhelm, Elusive Overwhelm, and you'll win the game with basically just Ahri attacking with a bunch of elusive units buffed by either Absolver or the Akshan Shield of Sentinels. And you can usually do this on turn 6 or turn 7, as long as you're not getting aggroed down. So this deck is really good for tournaments, and really good in slower metas where people are playing things like Thralls and Shelfolk style decks, and just these like really slow, non-interactive, no homecoming decks, so they can't interact with landmarks. No landmark interaction means that you just get free wins on turn 6 to 7. So how do you actually win the game? How do you go about getting your Ahri big and winning the game? Well, it all revolves around this guy, Akshan. So basically, your goal is to get a leveled up Akshan as fast as you can. Typically, you can do this by turn 4. So you play Akshan on 2, you get a leveled Akshan on turn 4. That's very common. And then you get Warlord's Horde. Once you have a Warlord's Horde in place, thanks to leveled Akshan, you would want to draw into a Promising Future or a Zephyr Sage. Ideally, Promising Future, because you can have Promising Future and then win on turn 6 a lot of the times. Other times you can win with like Zephyr Sage on 6. It might be a little bit harder because you'll have a lot less mana because you usually have to open with Zephyr Sage. But yeah, Promising Future is good enough. So you Promising Future the Warlord's Horde. And then what this does is whenever your Warlord's Horde counts down or activates, you'll get 2 Sentinel's Hordes. You'll get 2 of these at 0 mana. You then cast 2 Founts of Power. So you'll draw 4 cards, and all of your cards will cost 2 less. And this is a like a static buff for the rest of the round. So even if you recall your cards or created cards, all of those cost 2 less for the rest of the round. So that makes all of your units and a lot of your spells free. For instance, Navori Conspirator is a 2-mana 2/2 unit that says play, recall, and ally. Well, after you cast 2 of your Fount of Powers, after you cast 2 of these, your Navori Conspirators cost 0 mana, your Clockwork Curators cost 0 mana, your Retreat Returns cost 0 mana, Time in a Bottle 0 mana, Droplet 0 mana, all of that good stuff. Your Akshans are 0 mana. And you basically sit there and you just loop things like Navori Conspirator. So you basically pop the first Horde, and then you make everything cost 2 less. You then go into different loops of just like bouncing Navori Conspirator a bunch of times. You pop Akshan again. And then once you do that, then you can draw 2 more cards, make your cards cost 1 less. And then once you get everything to cost 3 less, you can easily go infinite with a Solitary Monk. all you need is a solitary monk and a solitary monk and a Navori conspirator. That's all you need, because you just go play Akshan, okay? That will give you your Warlord's Horde. You can now, where is he at? You conspirator your Akshan. You bounce it back to your hand. That advances the landmark. You play Akshan. That advances the landmark. You play solitary monk, okay? That bounces both units to your hand. You play the Akshan. That advances your landmark. You play conspirator. It recalls. You play conspirator targeting the monk. That advances your landmark and bounces the monk back to your hand. You play the monk. It bounces both units. You play the Akshan. You play that advances your landmark. You play conspirator. You bounce the monk. You play monk. Bounces the other two. Play Akshan, play conspirator, bounce the monk. Monk bounces the other two, and you just repeat this process over and over and over again of bouncing your board infinitely, basically. And if you add a droplet in there, there you go. You're now bouncing your board infinitely, and you get a draw every single time you do it. If you get something like Clockwork Curator in the mix there, well, now you advance your landmark extremely fast, because every time you bounce your board, you're not only getting one trigger from playing the Akshan, but you're getting 2 more triggers from the Curator, and you just have to bounce your board. I think it's like twice total, and you get to you get to go to your Fountain of Power. So you get to draw more cards and make your cards even cheaper. And you eventually get to a point to where all of the cards in your hand are free. You'll draw into another Promising Future. You draw into more cards, and you can predict with Time in a Bottle to try and draw into your Ahri. And after you basically just get all of your cards costing 0 mana, you just need to draw into basically Ahri and Absolver. The safest way to do this also is, once you have the Ahri in your hand, if you can get another Warlord's Horde popped, go for the Shield of Sentinels. That way your opponent can't like Frostbite the Ahri or Mini-Morph the Ahri or anything like that. And you don't have to worry about your opponent interacting with Ahri at all, because she will have Spell Shield. Then you want to go ahead and just play your Ahri, play Absolver on Ahri, and then Ahri will 100,000% be leveled up by this point. So you just attack with Ahri with all your elusives to the right side of you, and then Ahri will just get in with all of her 5 attack with your elusive allies. That's super lethal. If you have Absolver, it gives her +4 attack on top of everything and Overwhelm. That's going to be super lethal. And that's how you're looking to end the game out. The hardest thing with this deck is going to be actually making sure you don't run out of hand space by recalling your cards, especially if you have something like a droplet, where yes, card draw is really nice, but there becomes a point where you just have too many cards in your hand, and you start to overdraw, or you might start to burn units by recalling too many units, and I've done this multiple times, and it's something that you're just going to have to practice and learn. Try and get rid of all the cards in your hand as much as possible. Like if you have a 0 mana recall or a 0 mana retreat return, sometimes you have to just use those cards just so you can clear up hand space and not burn any of the units. Your units will recall to your hand from left to right, so put all the important units on the left side of your board, and you can do this by arranging attacks. Oh, also, you can only win, this only wins you the game if it's your attacking turn. So you have to pop your Warlord's Horde with your Promising Future. You have to pop that on your attacking turn, otherwise you can't really win. It's not like the Zilean infinite combo, the old one, where it didn't matter what turn you won on. You can just sit there and play Time Bombs and 20 your opponent on either turn. This version, because it relies on you attacking with Ahri, you have to go off on a turn you're attacking. But the good news with that is you're able to rearrange your units all the time by setting up a fake attack and then dragging your units back to your board, and then you can recall your board and put all your important units like your Ahris and your recall units and your Akshan and stuff like that to the left. And then so that way, if you do burn anything, it'll be the kind of useless minions on the right side. Yeah, so that's how the combo works. I know that's a lot, and it's really hard to follow. So that's why I'm going to put a game in here so you can kind of see how I pilot it. I put a very basic game where my opponent was playing a not very good deck. The goal wasn't to show you like, oh, look, this deck can win just because I can beat a really like low tier deck. The goal was to show you guys how the combo worked and how the combo functioned. There's a visual bug in the game because Ahri actually has 5 attack, but it looks like she only has 3. But yeah, it basically shows you how to sit there and loop cards and bounce and recall units over and over and over again. And like I said, in the description below, I'm going to be having a link to the VOD in which I played this deck for many, many hours. So if you are interested and you want to see this deck played a lot to try and see how I play the deck out, go ahead and click on that VOD in the link in the description below. and check that out. So that's how the deck works. That's how you win. So now we're going to go over why each card is in the deck and how you want to use the cards. So we'll start with just cheapest to most expensive. So Rite of Calling is basically another way to find Auction. This deck needs Auction. If you don't have an Auction early, you basically are going to lose, because this deck is level your Auction, double level your Auction, and stuff like that, and win the game off of Auction. So if you don't have Auction, you're going to be extremely sad. So that's why you play Rite of Calling. It's also why we only play 1 Ahri and 3 Auction, because you really need your Rite of Calling to pull out the Auction early on most of the time. 3 Droplets, just because it gives you ways to draw cards. It's elusive, so whenever you go with Ahri late game, it's elusive and wins you games. And it's a nice way to draw cards when you're looping, like when you're looping with your Conspirator Solitary Monk and you're bouncing your board over and over and over again. It's a nice way to keep card draw, so you can try and draw into that Ahri. As well as there are a lot of times where you can just go Droplet on 1, Conspirator on 2, and just kind of get a free draw if you don't have the Auction. That's a pretty nice thing too. 1 mana recall, because you really need to keep your Auction safe. The whole purpose of this, if your Auction dies before it levels up, you're really sad. If you only have 1 Auction and it dies when you're mid like loop combo, you're going to be really sad. Most of the time, if you can get the Promising Future and you actually pop Warlord's Horde, you don't need this Auction because you'll just draw into another one. But if you don't, you really need Auction through your loop combo as well. So that 1 mana recall is just a nice cheap way to keep your units alive. And it also triggers the Warlord's Palace, which is really good. 1 Ahri because it's your win condition. 3 Auction because he's, your win condition. He helps you level up. Clockwork Curator is good to help advance landmarks. A lot of times I'll use this on the... oops, sorry. Get out of there. We'll use it on the Warlord's Horde instead of the Warlord's Palace to try and get to this, power turn a lot faster. But sometimes I do end up using it on Warlord's Palace just so I can guarantee level up my Auction and start working towards the Warlord's Horde. It really depends on what your hand looks like. If you have this turbo advance hand where you can just get this Warlord's Horde as fast as possible and you already have the Promising Future, I just say go for it and just get down these units, or get down your landmarks as fast as possible, level up your Auction as fast as possible, and you do that. Once you have the Promising Future and you cast 2 Fount of Powers, your Clockwork Curator costs 0, and it's one of those cards where when it's thrown into the loop process of Conspirator Monk, you just get to advance your Warlord's Horde extremely quickly, because you get a trigger every time you bounce it back with something. And you get 2 triggers, obviously, when you play it. So a common mistake I see people do is they bounce their Auction with Navori Conspirator and play Auction. Because they think, oh, well, that's 2 triggers, right? 1 for targeting the Auction with Conspirator, and then you get a second trigger for playing the Auction. Well, if you actually bounce the Curator, you get 3 triggers, because you get 1 for the Navori Conspirator targeting. So you get 1 trigger for bouncing it to your hand. And then when you play Curator, you actually get 2 triggers because of the play effect. Whereas with Auction, you only get 1 trigger because of the Auction effect. So a lot of times if you're trying to advance your landmarks, bouncing the Curator is actually going to be better than bouncing the Auction with your Conspirator. Retreat Return, it is for 2 things. 1, it's a really good way to keep your Auction alive early. It's like a good save spell, just like Recall. 2, a really big thing is... when you pop the very first Warlord's Horde with Promising Future, it makes all your cards cost 2 less. So this Retreat Return will cost 0 mana. The Retreat will cost 0 mana, Return will cost 0 mana. Your Solitary Monk will still cost 1 mana. So this card isn't actually free yet, so you can't really go infinite until you activate a 3rd Warlord's Horde. Which is really simple if you can loop at least once. So what you can use Retreat Return to do a lot of times in the mid game or on your pop-off turn is to actually cheat in a Solitary Monk, because it will cost 1 mana. So you can do it for 0 mana. You retreat something, like literally anything, or you can retreat like a Conspirator, a Curator, whatever. So you do 0 mana retreat, recall something to your hand. You can play that free thing that you just recalled to your hand again. So let's say you retreated a Curator, right? So you bounce the Curator to your hand. You play it for 0 mana on your landmark to advance it to, and then you can use the second half of this, the return, to cheat in the Solitary Monk for free. So even though the Solitary Monk still costs 1 mana, you can cheat it in for free thanks to the return, and that's a good way to get in your Solitary Monk and start your loop process and not actually have to use the 1 unit mana. And then once you actually activate the Warlord's Horde again, and you make everything cost 3 less for the rest of the turn, then you're just home free, because your Solitary Monk costs 0 mana and your God Willow Seed costs 0 mana. Everything, your Auction spells now cost 0 mana. So you're basically home free at that point. So that's most of the time when I'm using Retreat Return on, is I'm looking for ways to cheat in my Solitary Monk for free. One Absolver, because it helps with your Aria win condition. If you don't have enough time to get the +2/+2, or maybe you just don't have enough elusives, so you need to overwhelm your opponent's blockers, Absolver is good in there. Time in the bottle to advance your landmarks to help your win condition. 3 Godwillow Seed. Godwillow Seed is absolutely fucking broken, and I 100% agree with the nerf of this. Count down to 3. Honestly, I would almost say, like, to nerf it even more, to just say, like, instead of recall an ally, you just say recall a follower, or an ally follower, so that way you can't use it on champions. Godwillow Seedling is easily one of the best cards to leveling up your Akshan on turn 4. You can play, like, Akshan on 2, and a lot of times you can Godwillow Seedling your Akshan on 3, and with that ephemeral copy that you get, you can cast Rite of Calling on it, and then so now you can actually get a good use out of Rite of Calling. Another time I use Godwillow Seed on another good target is Vagabond. So you play like Akshan on turn 2, Vagabond on turn 3, and then turn 4 you can Godwillow Seedling your Vagabond, and that's 3 triggers. 1 because the Godwillow targets the Vagabond, and then 2 more because the Vagabond comes in. And then if you do have the Rite of Calling, that's another trigger. So that's 4 total triggers on that turn alone, just from the Godwillow plus summoning of Vagabond plus Rite of Calling. So that alone is half of your Warlord's Palace. So let's just imagine a world where you went play Akshan on 2, attack. Your Warlord's Palace is at 7. On turn 3, it counts down to 6. You play Vagabond. That puts it down to 4. You go to your next turn. It counts down to 3. If you Godwillow Seed, that is enough already to activate your Vagabond. Alright, that's enough to already pop the Warlord's Horde. Like, that's not even counting if you have the Rite of Calling. Just that curve right there where you go Akshan on 2, attack, Vagabond on 3, Godwillow on 4, that levels your Akshan. So, like, it is very common to level Akshan. Another thing you can do is just, like, play Akshan on 2, attack, Godwillow your Akshan on 3, play the Rite of Calling, and that right there is another, you played Akshan on 2, attacked with it, that made you put it down to 7. Start of turn, it counts down to 6. Godwillow Seed Akshan, that puts it down to 4. The Rite of Calling, that puts it down to 3. Your next turn, it counts down to 2. You play the Akshan, it counts down to 1, and then if you're able to attack with the Akshan there on turn 4, then that puts it all the way down, and there you go. You have another activated landmark, another leveled up Akshan on turn 4, which is absolutely crazy. So there's plenty of curves that can level your Akshan on turn 4. And of course, these are the curves that aren't even counting things like your Curator, your Conspirators, your Time in a Bottles, like all of those things. This is just off of Godwillow Seed. So Godwillow Seed is an amazing addition to this deck that helps it become more consistent for sure. Solitary Monk, you need this card to help you loop. It just bounces back your entire board. Vagabond, this is mostly used if you either, 1, don't have an Akshan early, and you don't want to concede because you're in a tournament match or a ranked match or something. You can use Vagabond as a way to level up your Akshan. You kind of just cheat it out. You play the Vagabond, you get a Warlord's Palace. You eventually count down that Warlord's Palace. You get to predict and draw a card, and you're hoping to, like, predict draw into the Akshan, as well as this will already level your Akshan. So if you draw Akshan anytime in the future, it will already be leveled, and that's really helpful. That's really all it's in here for, is to help level your Akshan really quickly, and then it's like a little secondary plan if you don't draw an Akshan. After that, we have Homecoming. This is just nice insurance. You can use it to counter your opponent's Homecoming. You can use it to kind of stall out the board if your opponent is trying to kill you with something like big units. Homecoming's really nice. Promising Future is here just because Promising Future is part of our win condition. And Zephyr Sage is a card that a lot of people don't know why it's in here for. And it's really just in here to be a extra copy of Promising Future. A lot of curves I'll have if I'm winning on 6 is if I have the right recall cards in my hand already. Let's say you already have Promising Future on your Warlord's Horde. What you can do is pop the Warlord's Horde. You'll get 2 Sentinel's Hordes. You use the first one as Fount of Power. You draw 2, make your cards cost 1 less. And then you can just play a 5-mana Zephyr Sage. And then Zephyr Sage targeting the... Come on. Thank you. You can use Zephyr Sage to target the other Sentinel's Horde in your hand. And now you get 3 Sentinel's Hordes in 1 turn. So you can do Fount of Power again, you just drew 6 cards. All of your cards will cost 3 less for the rest of the turn, and now you can start to combo off. If you don't have Promising Future, Zephyr Sage is a good way to kind of combo off on 6 again. So it'll be a little bit harder because typically this will eat your entire unit mana on turn 6 if you're going off on turn 6. Turn 7, it'll only leave you with 1 unit mana, so it'll be pretty tight to go off. Maybe you just have like the nut curve and that's all you really need. But that's what it's in here for, is to be another copy of Promising Future. You can just level the Akshan, you pop Warlord's Horde, and if you only have one of the Sentinel's Horde, then you can Zephyr Sage it, and then you just use it for 2... you Zephyr Sage it, get a copy of Sentinel's Horde, so now you can get 2 Fount of Powers, and you just try and combo off again normally, as if you had a Promising Future there. Except this costs 6 unit mana, and Promising Future costs 4 spell mana. So, yeah, that's really why each card is in the deck. I know this was a very long tutorial on just why the cards are in the deck, and I haven't even showed you guys the game yet, but this is a very complicated deck, and the people that say, like, oh, the deck's easy, you just, like, bounce shit and then attack with Ahri, are people that probably don't play the deck that much, or don't realize, like, the ins and outs of the decks and how the deck is, like, really complicated. Like, at a very floor level, I'm sure most players can pilot the deck and say, oh, I'm just going to bounce things with my Conspirator. But they're going to lose a lot more games. They're going to mess up a lot more than players that play this deck a lot. I'm actually very big on thinking that this deck is actually really nuts for tournaments right now. Like, if I had to play in a tournament today, I would bring this deck in my lineup 100% of the time, because people are playing these, like, slow Shellfolk Nami decks that can't interact with landmarks. So it's like, if they aren't killing you on turn 6, basically, with, like, Shelly, and if they're not killing you on turn 6 with Shelly and Nami, then you're probably winning the game on the next turn. A lot of people are playing Thralls, and Fielder Rush, and Anivia, and these, like, slower decks trying to beat all the Shellfolk decks. You kind of absolutely destroy those. Lee Sin, I think, plays Deny, and some of them are playing, like, 1 Homecoming, and that's really it. But a lot of times you can get around Deny because you don't have to actually cast your Promising Future. Zephyr Sage is a really good way to get around Deny in the slow control matchups, because you just say, oh, I'm going to pop my Warlord's Horde. They say, okay, and then you just go, okay, Zephyr Sage the Sentinel's Horde. You're just like, I'm just going to Zephyr Sage this, and now they can't counter it. And after you do that play, they have a Deny in their hand. It can't really do much. You have Homecoming to deny their Lee Sin triggers. If they have their own Homecoming, which I don't even think most Lee Sin decks play Homecoming, but if they did, you'd be able to counter their Homecoming with your Homecoming. They don't play any actual removal spells, so for the most part, you're allowed to Goldfish. The only thing you have to look out for is them, like, challenging your Akshan, but because you play so many 1-mana recalls and retreat returns and stuff like that, you should be absolutely golden and good to go. You play the, like, Dancing Droplet to block the Zoe and stuff like that. So this deck is pretty complicated, and you are going to probably lose a decent amount when you first load up the deck. But just know that it's going to take a little bit to practice, and once you practice this deck, I think it is an absolutely just dominating deck against any type of mid-range to slow meta, because they just straight up, if they're not killing you on turn 6 and turn 7, you're going to be killing them on turn 6 and turn 7, and you're going to win the game. So yeah, so that's it for how the deck functions, how all the cards work, stuff like that. Now I'm going to show you guys the game, and then remember, if you guys are interested and want to see more of this gameplay, want to see how I pilot it more, check out the link in the description below for the link to my Twitch VOD. That's it. I hope you guys enjoy the game. Alright. Parasite. GG. Sure, man. Okay. So we have most of the cards we need here. We even get our Akshan, start leveling him up. I mean, I don't know how my Akshan would die here. Okay, cool. I would have been very concerned if my Akshan was dying there. Wounded White Flame. Alright, well, we're gonna do this. We'll have a blocker for your Wounded White Flame. Not a necessarily good blocker, but a blocker. Alright. So it looks like we're going to have a leveled 4, or a turn 4 leveled Akshan again. Okay. All right, so turn 4 leveled Akshan. That's good. We like turn 4 leveled Akshan. I'm gonna see if we can draw into another Akshan or something here. We drew a retreat return. That's pretty decent, but that's not really gonna help us right now. I don't think any of these actually help us right now, so we can pass. Rite of Calling does help us right now. That's nice. That'll help us win the game. So we'll just do this. We can block with Akshan. Okay, we should be winning next turn. On turn 6. So we got the attack token on 6 and we're able to win. Against a deck that didn't kill us, luckily. Stun. What if we just did this? That doesn't seem very worth it. I think we can just do that. You block here. Force out another spell. That's fine. As long as our Akshan strikes, I'll take it. And we play this Akshan again. He goes to 3. Alright, so we should be winning next turn. Okay, so we just promising future. Yep. Okay. And we can just do like this. Which one? Probably just on the Akshan. Alright, cool. And the game is over. If he... Okay, that makes sense. That helped me out a lot. And I think we win if this goes off. Alright. Cool. So draw 2 more cards, cost 1 less. I'll play the this because I don't want to have 2 full of a hand. I don't want my hand to be full. Alright. Cool. So we do that, and then we just win. Mm-hmm. Looking for a daring escape. You don't need any of those. Stay safe. I'll take it from here. Mm-hmm. Time for a leap of faith. We'll draw a card this time. Hog. We play Ahri, or not Ahri, but we play this. We give our champions +2/+0 and spell shield. We play Ahri. All right. Sure. I think if we just do this, we still have spell shielded Ahri. Or am I wrong? Did I just fuck up? No, I always have lethal here. Because I can just loop these again and get another one. But I was definitely supposed to bounce the Akshan back onto the Pantheon. Because I can bounce Akshan on the Pantheon and then do stuff. I just want to see if I'll get the spell shield back on my Ahri. How does the spell read? It just says grant or what? Grant your champions everywhere. Okay. So it's not just like a full status effect. So does it still have spell shield is the question. It does not still have spell shield. Okay. I don't know if this guy has any... I don't know if he has like any frostbites or anything. Too slow. Okay. Oh no, I'm out of... Okay, well. I guess hope he doesn't have any frostbites. Yeah. I was afraid he had frostbites, but we should have won this game. Cool. Never mind, I guess we won somehow.